Hi, this is Regina Favors with Overcoming Setback Inspiration. And I want to talk about the friendships that we maintain, the people we engage, and how um, sometimes those friendships may not be the best for you in what you are trying to accomplish. So 1 Corinthians 15:33 reads, "Be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners." And on the surface, it seems like that's a um, very um, confusing scripture because we don't always approach life thinking that everyone is evil. But evil communications are specific to a particular type of person and their strategy. So, for example, if you were not a person who was part of a gang at one point of your time, but decided to join a gang, is usually because you connected yourself with someone who was part of a gang. That person represents a door, right? And you might have decided to join that gang out of some emotional experience. Maybe you were rejected in your home. Maybe your family dynamic was very destructive, toxic, or maybe you were walking home and people jump you. You had your peers kind of jump you, right? And usually, when you feel that way, you want protection. So you think, okay, I'm going to join a gang, and then you are basically initiated into that gang, etc. The problem with that is now you have walked through the door of that individual person who has introduced you to the gang, right? The gang members, etc. The whole system, and whatever is on that person will gradually move towards you. So if they handle problems a certain kind of way, it's likely that you will learn their way of handling problems, right? You shouldn't have to join a gang to solve a home problem or a problem where you were jumped while walking home from school. Joining a gang should not be the solution to that problem, but you have made it a solution to that problem. So anything that is attached to that person, the way they think, their attitude about life, their procrastinating habits, how they do whatever it is they are told to do. They don't have a mind of their own. Um, their communications or their belief systems will now attach to you and will corrupt your good manners. Your mother or your father taught you how to solve problems by actually doing the work, right? Or you could not have had that exposure. One problem that we learned as kids is has to do with chores. Your dad or your mom told you to take out the trash or wash the dishes or sweep the floor, clean your room, etc. And as long as you did that, as long as you received the instruction and performed the task, then you advanced in your understanding about work and how important it is to stick to the thing that you are supposed to do, to be accountable, to obey your parents, etc., right? But what happens if you don't have that at the house? What happens if you haven't been exposed to that level of instruction, that level of authority? Something in you seeks out to be told what to do in some cases. There are some things you can do on your own, and you feel something on the inside of you compelling you to do it, and then there are some things you just need to be told to do. Um, you shouldn't have to be told to do it, but it's part of your development, it's part of your lifespan. But when you engage with people who have a certain kind of destructive pattern in their life, it's not going to be that long until you begin to adopt that pattern. That's why I'm always careful about who I hang around with, because I can reflect on past experiences while I was in grade school, high school, And then I have family experiences. There was always a one person who got me into things. The person didn't tell me or didn't reveal the full thing, the full matter until we actually got there, right? For example, I had a cousin who was into boys earlier than I was, and she would invite me to go somewhere with her, right? But then she would make a stop at some boyfriend's house, some older man's house, and not understanding that that was putting me in danger as well as putting herself in danger. And anything could have happened. I could have gotten raped. I could have been snatched. Anything could have happened. And she was just the type of person who got herself into stuff. Now, she came from a family background that was sort of disorganized, lack cohesion. Mother was in and out, father was in and out. She had to go live with aunts and uncles, etc. And there were some other issues with her. And so she only did what her spirit was compelling her to do. But she had been exposed to, say, a different belief system that attached to her. So what she was doing, she had learned. You do what you know. You do what you learn. And so then that becomes her goal, to pass it down to me, so to speak. Let's pass it down to me. Let's get me into something, and then I will follow up and do exactly the same thing to somebody else. But that bothered me. That she got me into stuff. And so I stopped hanging out with her. I moved to another state, not because of her, but because I didn't want that kind of distraction from her or anyone else. And I noticed that even when I moved to a whole different state, I had put time and distance and space in between us, that I found myself doing exactly the same thing. Now, I didn't get anyone else into anything, but I got myself into stuff that definitely could have cost me my life. Sometimes I look back on a lot of the decisions that I made, and I think to myself, I shouldn't even be here. But it was being exposed to evil communications, bad thinking, bad decision making, bad attitudes, using the wrong type of solutions for a certain type of problem, that they could corrupt good manners. And it took me a while to get out of this sort of spell of making bad decisions, getting myself into dire situations that could have cost me my life, meeting people, getting engaged with people in friendship too early, being in cars I shouldn't have been in. And because that wasn't necessarily my upbringing. I did have upbringing that was kind of toxic, but and I did have a mother who kind of got me into some things, right? But it was more positive than not. And so, be not deceived, evil communications corrupt good manners, that you will find yourself thinking and doing and acting like the person you are exposed to. You have to protect your mind. You have to protect your heart. You have to protect your finances. But you definitely have to protect your spirit, man. Because what you take into your soul, what you link yourself with, who you link yourself up with, the soul ties that you make between you and someone else can have a negative impact. The person who is in jail now, or in prison, or in or any other type of dire situation, did not start out that way. A person is not born, unless there is an exception to the rule. A person, most people are not born into prison. They're not born into prison. And so that usually happens when they have come out and they don't take the narrow path, they take the broad path, they go in and out of different circles thinking consequences don't apply, and then it catches up with them. but it's usually some kind of friendship that you've had that you thought was going to be good for you that turned out to not be good for you. So evil communications corrupt good manners. Be careful about who you hang around. Be careful about houses you go into. It used to be that you can go into houses and sit and talk with people. You can't do that anymore. You don't know what people are doing in their houses anymore, especially in their basements. You don't know if the day that you go out on the date, that person is not tricking you into sex trafficking. You don't know that the drugs that you take are not spiced with fentanyl. This is something that can take you out, synthetic drugs. I tell people, I've told somebody this in the past, and I've never taken drugs, but I told somebody in the past that you used to could trust your drug dealer. If he said it was cocaine, or if it's heroin, or if it's any other type of drug, you didn't think for one moment that it was going to be a synthetic drug in the middle of that, right? Now, people are buying drugs and having negative effects to the point that they are becoming zombies. That's evil communications corrupt good manners. And so I don't advocate, taking drugs or anything like that. And you are your own individual. You have to make that decision yourself. But you do have to be careful today. You have to discern the times, that the times are not the same times that you experienced when it was in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, or whatever. That the times are different. You just don't automatically go out and date someone online because you can meet that person and that person can snatch you, kill you, and you die. And that has happened, right? You don't just meet people in private spaces. You don't go to homes anymore in the way that you could before. Like I said, there's a lot of decisions that I made that I could be dead, but then there's a lot that I did that today, if I do that today, I would definitely be sold in some form or manner, right? So I had to learn to begin thinking for myself and making decisions, but I also had to reassess the communications I was having with people that were no good for me. And they are not necessarily evil people, they just did not have the best communications, the best attitude, the best belief system, that everything goes. They had no real limits about them. And you cannot live like that. You have to have limits. You have to have boundaries. So, overcoming setback inspiration, 1 Corinthians 15:33, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Thank you for listening to this audio.